We're going to move on to our next speaker, and I know we have Paul out there, and I'll let him start his video as well. And Paul, good morning, and thanks for joining us. We're excited for the panel that you've put together today, Unique Staffing Structures, the New Contract Worker in the Gig Economy. So Paul, good morning, and thanks for being on with us.
Oh, good morning, Garrett. Thank you very much for having us. We're looking forward to this presentation this morning, and we've got a panel of terrific people assembled here today to support this whole process of what's this gig economy all about. I'll just give a quick introduction for the panelists this morning, and we'll take it from there because I know we're short on time. But first off, Joyce Cohen is joining me today. Joyce is a career coach par excellence and has many years of experience in dealing with coaching people at all levels, whether it be students in high school or mid-career people or senior citizens, and over a wide variety of industries, from school to business to the CIA for that matter. So she's an extensive background in coaching in life and coaching in industry. Barbara Hanna joins us. Barbara is the owner and the main force behind Barbara Hanna and Associates, a coaching and consulting firm that assists people and companies with their communications to make sure they're concise, to the point, and actually very much on mark. And Barbara is going to be speaking about how she's made a transition in life to this new world of being her own company and her own owner of her firm. And also Dom Scarano is with us. Dom is a principal with Bailey and Scarano, an extraordinarily fine accounting firm based in Branford, Connecticut. They've celebrated their 104th anniversary as being in business, and Dom makes me understand clearly that he's not been there the entire time of the company's history. So Dom is a strong background and will give us some great tips and thoughts about what you should consider if in fact you find yourself in a situation where you'll be beginning your own company and possibly being a gig employee. So everyone will have a chance to give you their views, and I'm sure you will find it all very, very helpful. I thought I would just start by talking about this whole concept of what the gig economy is and what it is to be a gig employee, and who are these gig employees in our midst these days. Many times people wonder where the term gig really came from. Actually, back in the 1920s, when jazz musicians and performers on Broadway were looking for work, they would refer to their next assignment as a gig. They would go do a dance routine at a Broadway theater or at some show, or a musician would take his instrument and go to play with another band for a short period of time. That would be their gig. So they became the gig economy in those days, mostly for people who were passing through and only would be working at a certain assignment for a short period of time. It also went with many of the people in the arts industry as well. So the people in lighting and the people in the stage and the people in the orchestras were all pretty much gig employees in those days. They worked for a period of time, did their performance, and then they moved on. No benefits, no long-term expectations. It was generally just a short-term assignment. The gig economy has resurrected itself today for a variety of reasons. And we find that many people are in the gig economy today that had normally not been there because they had long-term jobs with benefits, and those jobs were continuing and continuing and continuing. And people look forward to getting their 25-year watch and becoming members of the Quarter Century Club and a variety of things along those lines, but times have changed dramatically. So people are not many times long-term employees, and because of reasons of their own or because of reasons of the company, they find themselves looking for work and looking for a new career and a new way to make a living. So we're finding today that the gig economy is growing. In 2017, a statistic that I saw showed that there was about 10 million people who were private contractors or gig economy people. In 2019, that number had grown to over 15 million. And today, because of COVID and all the other things we're facing right now, that number is estimated to be well into the mid 20 million, maybe even higher than that. So the gig economy is growing. People are working part-time, short-term assignments, doing pretty much anything they can to, in fact, earn a living for themselves and their family. And it's becoming very, very much commonplace. And it brings some positives, and there's some negatives to it as well. I think one of the things we want to talk about is both sides of that, the positives and the negatives. And as you can well imagine, the flexibility of being gig employee is probably a very positive thing, but certainly the benefits side of it and not knowing how long your paycheck is going to last is certainly a negative side of it. So balancing the pluses and minuses if you're looking to be a gig employee is certainly a major consideration. We find that in the industries today, just about every industry has gig employees, whether it be agriculture or manufacturing or education, wherever it might be. People are working part-time, working a few hours a week, a few hours a day, couple weeks a month, whatever the case may be. It's pretty much commonplace today to see people as gig economy. We also find that there are many people who are working a full-time position and are also a gig economy person. They might be picking up a part-time job to make extra money when it's possible, or during holiday seasons when retail outlets are looking for more people, they work a few extra hours after their full-time job. So we might have people in the regular economy and also the gig economy at the same time. Finding that we have many times 4 generations working within one organization, it brings different views and different attitudes towards the gig economy as well. People say, well, why do you take a job as a gig economy person? Well, because the opportunity is there and I need the money. I need an opportunity to grow. But many times people who are in transition are finding that the only opportunities for them is to be a gig economy person and take a job for a short period of time to see if in fact they fit the job. And the company also has an opportunity to see if that person is right for their culture and their environment and it really works out. So it's a bit like taking a test drive. If you're looking to buy a car, you try it out to see if it's the right thing, and then you carry on from there. The good news about gig economy people who do that is they have an opportunity to go from a temporary to a permanent assignment. And many times they, in fact, are the ones that land the job that the company was looking to fill, but weren't necessarily looking to fill it on a full-time basis right away. They were looking to fill it on a part-time basis. So the gig economy is pretty much here to stay, I would think. And we're looking to see how this is going to continue to grow and how, in fact, it will impact our economy in a variety of ways. I think the thing to keep in mind when we look at the gig economy is that there's, good things that can come from this if, in fact, we utilize it in the proper way. And I think the 4 most important things to look at when you're looking at the gig economy today is the 4 Ps, the place. Where is it you're going to work? We're finding in the gig economy, many times people have to be creative with their commuting because the job that they have a gig opportunity for might be in another state. It might be on the other side of the country, and they'll leave on Sunday night, work all week and come back on Friday, maybe Saturday, be home for the weekend and go away again. So in fact, you need to make sure that the place that the gig opportunity is going to work for yourself and your family and all the other necessary specifics of that job. The process that you're going to be doing while you're in that job is the second P. What is it that I'm really asked to do? Have I oversold myself for this position, or do I really have the skills to do this job properly? And I can stay here for a period of time for the assignment, or maybe they'll renew me as an employee and keep me longer than what they had anticipated. And maybe I'll even become a regular employee, because we still find that 60 to 75% of the jobs being filled today are never advertised. They're just known by the company, and they hire them many times very privately and quietly without even going to the outside. So if you're on the inside as a gig employee, you might have a better chance for that opportunity when it opens. The third P is the people that you'll be working with. You need to make sure that you're in the environment that's going to be comfortable for you and appropriate for your skills and your background and your style. So looking at the people around you and the people that you're going to impact while you're there as well is a major consideration. And the last P, I think, is very important. That's the purpose. What are you looking to do in this job? Do you really have a purpose, or are you just taking a job to make money and to pay your bills? And that's very important, I understand. But going deeper into it, do you have a true purpose for what you're looking for in this next assignment that you're taking on? We all would like to be able to say that I can have a long-term relationship with an organization, but we know in many cases that's not the way of the economy today. And who knows where it's going to be changing as this work from home process continues during this COVID virus that we're fighting at the same time. So place, process, people, and purpose, we think are very important when you're looking at gig economy jobs and assignments that you might be looking at for a part-time, semi-part-time, or even a full-time basis. So with just those few opening comments, I'd like to ask Joyce to talk a little bit more about the purpose side of things, because Joyce is working very closely with a colleague of hers, and my future purpose is a organization that Joyce has begun, and I'd like to get Joyce's thoughts about this.
Perfect. Thank you, Paul. I'm so glad you brought that up because purpose is the one we usually look at from the business perspective. And I'm going to look at this from macro, micro, and the macro is from the corporation or the business, regardless of the size perspective. And they usually talk about the product and the price of it and the place of where you're going to put this and how you promote it. And purpose always is becoming now a word that is very linked to the place where you work. And the name of the game is linking purpose with, so that everyone is on the same page, meaning the purpose of why are we in business? And then from the standpoint of the individuals working there, do they align with what you are all about? And do you as the company align with people? Do you feel like I belong here and that what I'm doing is making a difference? There are several books that are even coming out now. You have now corporations creating chief purpose officers. That would never used to be. And it's an individual whose job is to do just that, align what the company or the organization is about, who's working there, and are we really looking at the good of what's being offered out there in the world? So that providing a service or a product, regardless of what it is, has to get linked to the social good that it provides. And I'll mention just a couple books, because if anyone has any interest in this, one of them that I'm going to show up right now is called Purpose in a Paycheck. And that's is a Chris Farrell book, but it's becoming very popular now because younger people, especially all the millennials and the Gen Z folks who are entering the workforce, want to not have things, they want to have experiences, and they want to be working for a place that is making a difference out in the world. And the other one I'll mention, and I highly recommend this, is called Good is the New Cool. And it has to be about the product service that you provide linked with what difference does it make in the world. And then if you look at an organization like Bombas, you've probably seen that commercial on TV, buy a pair of socks and they give a pair of socks to someone in need. And the combination of that good is the new cool, meaning what am I doing that makes a difference and of what value is it out there in the world? There is what younger workers are looking for. And they're also looking at a company's mission statement, your purpose statement that may hang on the wall, but how real is it in actuality when you're working there? So younger people are asking very different questions in interviews. And that leads me to the flip side of this, beside the company, from a personal perspective. We're in uncharted waters. As Paul talked about, so much of what used to be is not so now. And that's why the first thing we've got to do is shift our mindset. So if you hear a word like TaskRabbit worker or Uber Lyft driver, we may get a mindset of what that is. And it might be transient because that's really what the word gig means. And the shifting of the mindset is we may, in essence, have multiple revenue streams that we bring in. And we've got to look inside because that's the first thing you go. After you shift your mindset, you got to go inside and look at what am I all about? What are my values? What are my interests? What are my skills? And put all that together with the experience that you've gathered and amassed so far. And then look at where do I want to provide that in the future? And perhaps the whole idea of not settling, because we don't call that anymore. Not settling means perhaps a revenue stream coming from multiple places. I never thought of myself as a gig worker, but in fact, I've been doing it for 50 years. And it was not having one employer. Well, early on I did, but then gathering revenue streams that I would go various places and work for a day. So was I transient? Yes, but what was I called? Consultant, entrepreneur. You just have different names that represent really the same similar kinds of things. So you go inside, you look at what you're good at, you amass those experiences, shift your mindset about you're not settling, you're trying out for size to look at the health of an organization and is this a good fit? And if you have any interest in this, I would be more than happy to have any conversation. You just, we will share emails later. Be glad to talk with any of you about how you do this because it's a whole new world out there, and don't shy away from any labels now because we are looking at we've got to go inside and look at what do I need to amass? Do I need to make money? Do I want to get out of the house if I'm already retired? You look at what works for you, and then how do I put that into practice to end up being the purposeful individual and provider that you've always wanted to be.
Terrific, Joyce. Thanks very much. Yeah, your comments about settling are so true. In my business, the Schegg Group, we deal with people that are in transition all the time, and they continually say, I'm not going to settle for just any job. Well, you have to be careful with that because sometimes you get a wrong connotation there. Settling also gives you an opportunity to take a look and kind of step back a little bit, see what the new industry is all about, and realize for sure that your old company knew a lot about you, so they were willing to pay you at a certain rate. But your new company might be just really trying to figure out what you are and what you bring to the party. So they might need to look at a different compensation structure for you to begin with. So settling is not a bad thing. You want to continue to grow and develop, but settle, not a negative connotation whatsoever. Thanks, Joyce. Really appreciate that. We'll be around for questions here going forward. Barbara, we'd like to turn to you now and get a personal insight from you as to what it has meant to go in transition and to now start your own business.
Thanks for having me, Paul. I'm not sure what the makeup of the audience is, so I'll try and touch on aspects of people who are recently out of work and people who are the younger set, just always gravitating to the gig economy. But as a little background, the lion's share of my extensive career has been in corporate America, in Manhattan at large Fortune 50, Fortune 100 companies, always in communications, corporate communications, marketing communications. And in the last 10, 15 years, the natural evolution to social media marketing communications. So basically, it's being responsible for getting the story told for whatever the business of the company, the aspect of the business that I'm involved with. And so that was up until 2017, when a little bit like what Joyce was talking about in terms of that need for a sense of purpose, after many years of serving the corporate voice, I felt there was something inside of me that was longing for more meaning. And so I elected to exit the corporate world and dedicated a year to a nonprofit. So that really checked the life box for me. I called it my Peace Corps year. And when that was over, I said to myself, okay, glad I checked that box, but I'm going to go back where I'm more comfortable. I know I can make a lot of income and where I sort of fit. And what I discovered, where the story gets a little interesting, is much as I truly believe in my capabilities, for any number of reasons, I was not able to quickly secure the kind of role that I was really open to. And I do have a plethora of capabilities. So what happened is, in the course of a good solid year plus of looking for full-time work, for me, I don't know those who are present with us on what your individual capabilities are, but for me, all things communications are a very portable, transferable skill. If someone needed a press release, if someone needed a communications plan, someone needs a marketing plan, I could just do that for a small business, medium, large. So while I was looking for the long, okay, I want that amazing full-time capacity that I'd had for years and years, after a while, I said to myself, for the reasons of generating revenue, for the reasons of putting a toe into an organization that may want me for the long haul, let me package up myself as a gig solopreneur. And with the advice of my financial advisor, for me, it was to create an LLC, which is very simple, sounds intimidating. Others do an S Corp. Very little financial commitment is involved, very little paperwork. But for me, it legitimized my capabilities to present myself as I networked as an individual who had my own business and could deliver any number of services on a gig basis. And so the value of that was that at first, it sort of legitimized me that I had a company versus I was just Barbara Hannon. And with that was more attractive to some larger organizations who have a lot of back paperwork when you want to actually work for them on an interim basis. Some of them are like, if you're just an average home, resident in a home and you know how to do something, that is not going to get you through the review process of going through procurement and having them retain you. So there are a lot of good reasons. So one was to actually be in a position to secure gigs at large corporations, but also it gave me fresh, remember I'd been out of work for a year. So it gave me fresh stories to bring to interviews, to bring to new clients, to stay fresh. It gave me interim revenue, which is always a beautiful thing. And it actually, and this is the most important thing, it restored my professional soul. I've had a lot of years of being, and I think anyone on this webinar today feels that they are the professional that they are, whatever it is. Even if you're a caterer or a carpenter, if it's not something in an office environment, whatever it is, if you've done it for a long while, it is your identity. And so what I was able to do is really feel like I was back in my saddle again. And with that, right alongside of it is the word networking. And when I say networking, it's really leaning into this. This is not waiting for someone to call and, oh, you have a friend. No, it's going to the New Haven Chamber's monthly, now would be Zoom, and it's very valuable to Zoom or in person. Zoom's just as valuable, to go to their monthly events, to go to the Bridgeport Regional Business Council's monthly Zoom networking events. And I would say that the most important thing for me to secure agreements, which are not always perpetual. I mean, I can go a gap without a financial arrangement for a gig, but I have built the confidence of establishing my LinkedIn profile, because you either need to be on LinkedIn or perhaps on Facebook, based on if you're like a restaurant or a seamstress or whatever, but you need to be online. So by fine tuning my LinkedIn, by really networking, and when I say getting to the Zoom, here's the bonus thing that makes a Zoom more advantageous, is to make sure you send a little note in chat if anyone seems to be aligned with what might be a category you could get a gig with, or would understand what you're doing, because you can't always be getting. You need to give as well. You need to have an exchange of, how are you doing? I saw what you said on Zoom. Tell me what's going on with you. Maybe I can help. But what you do is you reach out after that Zoom, and you either connect with them on LinkedIn or through email, and you say, let's talk for half an hour on the phone. You have that time, especially in pandemic. You have the time in the evenings, on the weekends, probably, whatever suits the two of you. But what you do is you have this sort of genuine, wonderful exchange of information, and you create a connection. So networking is critical. And for me, what I have ended up doing is, by building strong relationships and by taking the time to talk with people about what do they need, how can I help, then what I've now started to do is, in order to secure a gig, is to, some of my colleagues and professional friends have their own businesses. And what I do aligns with them. It doesn't compete with them, but it's sort of the next door neighbor to the kind of work they do. And I've been able to be brought in as a subcontractor under the umbrella of their organization. And of course, they take a fee, and I establish my fee. And again, it's not something that is a constant. And there is what Paul pointed out, you don't always necessarily have the ongoing revenue. But what this can be, if you feel compelled, if your soul requires you be a permanent employee or working somewhere on a regular basis, if you establish yourself in the gig economy and you no longer define yourself as whatever my title was at my previous corporation, which was Pitney Bowes. 2.5, 3 years later, I don't see myself as that title at Pitney Bowes. Today, I see myself for the overall business acumen that I bring. I'm not one title that was a manager of some one thing. I have an extraordinary background, as I'm sure anyone listening feels they have things they're really good at. So what I would say, what I hadn't mentioned yet, is you need to get your shtick down, your elevator speech, and that can be very intimidating. I do remember being at the Big Connect in Oakdale 2 years ago, like from today, and it was my first venture into, okay, I'm going to do this now. And someone said to me, well, tell me about your business. And I said, well, I was recently a such and such title at Pitney Bowes. That's not my elevator speech. 2 years later, I have found that you need to dig deep and figure out, what are you solid at? What can you do in the middle of your sleep, in your mind, that you are so good at? And even if you have 12 things that you are good at, figure out what it is, that shorter, sweeter, deliverable that might be of value of someone else. Because at the end of the day, it's what's in it for them. How can you help them? Because so many organizations don't have the ability to increase headcount, or they're cutting back headcount. And you can be a very attractive service to them if you can say to them, listen, I can fill the need that you have, this finite problem, for this set amount of money. And what you need to do is leave them smiling, over deliver, and you've built a fine reputation. And when you're done, if you are in the professional realm of a LinkedIn environment, then you ask them for a recommendation. So I'm going to stop there because there's so much and I don't want to take up any more time. But anyone, I'm not sure if we're going to come back to me, but anyone is welcome to find me on LinkedIn or through email. Send me a note in the chat here. I'd be glad to pick up this conversation and help you out.
Good. Well, Barbara, that's terrific. I mean, hearing from somebody who's actually done it, who's gone from a corporate job to their own business now, it's just so wonderful to hear that. I believe we are going to a chat room after this, so hopefully the audience will stay with us and there'll be an opportunity for chatting. But just quickly, because I know we want to move on to Dom and talk about another aspect of this as well. Barbara, when you were thinking of your career, did you ever think you'd be a private practitioner, have your own business ever?
Being in communications, I always thought that I would be a writer and write books and such, and there's still time for that. No, I did not think. I always knew that there were people on the side would say, could you write me a press release? Could you write me an article? Because I have that capability. But I was always a corporate beast. I worked on Park Avenue for 13 years, a very large corporation. That was the foundation. And I really love the corporate world. I don't hate the corporate world. I love the corporate world. There's nothing that you should mention that having a team is everything to me. And so one of the things you need to bring, and both Joyce and you kind of touched on, making sure you fit into the organization. You're going in and out. So you need to be flexible and adaptable to going in and understanding, what's this organization about? And can I assimilate quickly and be a part of that and not fight City Hall? Can I be a part of it? So it's been a pleasure to sort of go in, because I think we've all worked at somewhere long-term where personalities weren't always our favorite. The luxury of this is, if there's any burden, after a period of months or weeks, it's over and you move on.
You can walk away from it for sure. The values of being your own person as well certainly helps on things like the commuting costs and that sort of thing. You're working from the corporate headquarters this morning for the Barbara Hanna Associates, I believe. And
let's not forget the tax benefits for your home.
Well, a perfect lead in to what we're going to talk about next. We had the purpose, we have the actual participation. Now we have the precaution section, where we need to take some steps to make sure that we have the right advice and the right counsel before we move into this gig world, or LLC or S Corp, to make sure that we've spoken to a professional. So Dom Scorano, we're looking forward to hear from you, your thoughts about what people should think about when they're looking at this thing of being a gig employee.
Sure. Thanks, Paul. This is really kind of going what both Joyce and Barbara both alluded to. When somebody goes from, a lot of cases, they're going from a W-2 wage job, whether it's in corporate or privately, family-owned companies, and for whatever the reason may be, they end up finding themselves having to either find another job, and sometimes, as I think Joyce mentioned, gig consultant. Everybody becomes a consultant. The jobs, especially back years ago, working in the phone company. that was a lifelong job that people would have, or the gas company and water company. And some are, but a lot of times now it's no longer that. And they find, okay, you get your severance, you walk away, and they say, listen, we'll hire you back as a consultant. It does give those business owners, especially in this environment, a lot of flexibility not to have employees, because obviously, again, if they don't meet, especially they don't meet the definition of an employee, you're saving on payroll taxes, you're saving on benefits. If it's a downturn in business, it's a lot easier to remove a consultant than it is an employee. And when people do that, they say, oh, I have a job, I'm kind of going out there on my own, I've got my business card going, what do I do? As Barbara said, the first thing you really got to talk to is you got to talk to your financial advisor. You've got to understand what the tax implications, this is all the boring stuff, I get it. You have to find out, what are the tax implications? Should you be an LLC? Should you be a subchapter S? What does that mean? Because what happens a lot of times when people do this, we find that at the end of the day, they may have a tax burden, have no idea why they have a tax burden. And they really have to understand that, because if they're a W-2 employee and they go to a gig or a contractor, you're responsible for your own taxes. They're not coming out of your paycheck anymore. So you have to plan that. You have to manage that. There are great benefits to that as well. But the first thing is talk to your advisor, find out and get an understanding of what it means to be a gig or a contractor, a subcontractor or a contractor consultant, and make the decision on the entity. Once you make that decision, then you've got to understand you may have to register for sales tax. You may be doing business in other states. All of this are important questions that either you or your financial advisor should be asking you, to make sure you are filing the compliance work, the boring compliance work. Because the other thing that happens with people starting a new business is they're just looking to get business. The accounting and the tax kind of takes a little bit of a step back, because now they're in a position where I've got to figure out a way that I can make money, and doing it that is my main concentration. How do I make contacts? How do I make money? I'll worry about the tax after. That's dangerous. It really should be at the same time. Once you figure out what kind of entity, be it an LLC, a subchapter S, you can stay a sole proprietor, depends on the type of business you're in. Some business may need insurance, professional insurance. Once you get that, now you're on making your money, you're making your revenue, you're generating the revenue. You have expenses and deductions that you're allowed against that. No longer as an employee can you take what we call unreimbursed business expenses. That changed in the last tax act. You cannot take any of those. But if you are a contractor, self-employed, gig employee, you are allowed to take an array of deductions. And I think Barbara alluded to a home and office deduction, where if you have an office in your home, there are advantages to that as well. You also can form a retirement plan at the end of the day. They have the simplest ones, a SEP. Effectively about 20% of your net earnings you can put into a retirement plan. You're really acting as your own business, where before your employer might be contributing and you were contributing in a 401k or a 403b. Now you're doing it. It becomes your plan. You could have employees if your business necessitates that or dictates that. That gets a little bit more complicated because you have filing and compliance returns that have to be filed. So when you take all these deductions, it could be office expense, advertising expense, professional fees, rental, telephone, internet. You can buy a computer that's for the business, printer, scanner. All of those would be subject. Some may not be 100%. They may have a personal use to them, but they're available to have the ability to be deductible. Once you kind of go through that, you're going to have to probably pay quarterlies at some point in time. Once you got to get up and running, you're responsible. April, June, September, and January. If you are profitable or you foresee yourself being profitable, you will pay those on your own. Again, if you're an LLC, and I'll go back, as Barbara said, if you're a subchapter S, a little bit different. You can still have quarterlies, but you're also able to take payroll. LLC, you form that, you are not able to take the old standard payroll check and have taxes removed unless you elect to be a different type of entity, such as a subchapter S corporation. As Barbara alluded to, very easy to do. You could be an LLC and switch to a subchapter S. It's one page, one form that you fill out, 2553 to do that. The other thing that people tend not to understand is when you're self-employed, you're a gig, you're a contractor, you're a consultant, is the self-employment tax. They forget about that part of it. They say, well, I got the income tax, I'm gonna put that on my return. I have some standard deduction or I have itemized deductions. They kind of forget that the net earnings of a company are subject to self-employment tax. Social Security, things about $132,000, you're taxed 12.4% on that. Medicare tax on your net earnings is 2.9%. It doesn't matter, it's not limited by any earnings. You do get half of that, of those two amounts as a deduction on the front of your return, but you have to pay 100% of that on your tax return. And a lot of people forget about that. They don't think about the self-employment tax. There's other measures that can be done, you know, again, in terms of retirement and planning. There's a 20% business deduction depending on the field and the amount of money you're making that the government has allowed under this act. That's somewhat advantageous depending on the field you're in. But again, I think as Barbara and Joyce, I think both alluded to, talk to your advisor before you really get going. Because at the end of the day, if you don't, you're going to be in for a big surprise. We want to have no surprises. That's our goal. That's the goal of anybody in business, anybody financial advising, no surprises. And I'll end on that note.
Terrific, Dom. Thank you. Could you talk a little bit about what clearly makes a person a consultant as opposed to an employee? I believe there's some tests that the state and federal government has that regulates that.
Yeah, there are. There's but basically I think it's about 20 rules to follow if you become, it's really more from the employer side, because employers are trying not to, in many cases, don't want to make you an employee. But if they're dictating certain things as an individual, you come in there and you're basically working 5 days a week for the same company and you're sitting in the same desk and you're basically doing whatever they tell you. They want you in these days, they want this kind of work done, they want this specific assignment done, assignment. And you do that for a consistent period of time, you could be an employee there. They try not to have you become an employee for the various reasons. And I've had clients that do that, and you know, some of them risk that. And I explain to them, you have employees here. These are not consultants. These are not what we call 1099 people that you have, but some people try to do it. So it's more on the employer side, Paul, than it's on the individual side on who's dictating that.
But it certainly could have an impact on the individual depending how they're being treated.
No doubt. Well, what happens sometimes is we've had this is something happens, something at work doesn't go right. Somebody gets laid off for whatever the reason. They go try to collect unemployment, and they go to the unemployment and say, I don't have you as an employee of this company. You're not on the rolls. Well, I was working there. I was there, you know, for 3 months there, and I was getting, in their mind, getting paid. They're not viewing it as a paycheck versus a check for that. And what happens there is they're going to get a phone call. That business is going to get a phone call, and they're going to either be discussed or there's going to be chances there'll be an unemployment audit, where they're going to go look through and see, are these people holding themselves out as employees or contractors, or are they really employees?
True.
That happens more than, you know, you have your own LinkedIn site. Do you have business cards? What are your invoices looking like? Are you invoicing your quote employer? If you're not doing some of those things, basically the state's going to come and say, wait a minute, we're going to really question this if you're really a contractor or really an employee. And that's where that kind of goes. For
sure. Well, there's a certain amount of romance and rewards to the being a gig employee, but there's a little risk there as well. And you have to, I think, take some necessary steps early on to make sure that you're protecting yourself and doing the right thing going forward. All right. Well, we've been very efficient in getting through our major topics here. So I think we've got a little bit of time. Joyce or Barbara or Dominic, like to add anything additional before we open up for questions?
I just wanted to add to what Don was saying, that there's much more to it, but for those who are just starting out, when it comes to pricing your services and deliverables, based on everything that Dom just spoke to, it's important to have a conversation with someone in the know. Because, whatever you would normally charge, whatever would be an employee, you have to take into account all of the different taxes and fees that you are liable for paying back. And so you'll often hear that a consultant or a gig worker is expensive, not if you take into account all that they need to pay back in taxes and whatnot. So pricing of your services is critical, or you'll be swimming backwards quickly if you don't price it right.
Absolutely. Good advice. Yeah. Joyce, other thoughts?
Yeah, I would just reiterate the critical nature of deciding before you enter any venture. And as we said, we don't know if you're already doing this or this is something you're starting out. You've got to go inside first and look at what are all the things that you have amassed over the years. And then of that, what do you want to continue doing? And that's so important to look at, one, what I'm already all about, and two, what I really want to be doing in the future. And is this something that would make me want to get out of bed in the morning and go do and say, I get to do this today. And when I can do it, and somebody mentioned it earlier, and know that I don't have to be here a month from now. If this doesn't work or I don't like that environment, this is a short-term thing. And I can learn from this and then go forward. And it gives me another way to look at where do I want to be going in the future with this. And that will help me target the markets that I want to be looking at for the next venture or the next place I go with the talents that I already am.
Mm-hmm. In dealing with many people that we see in transition, people often mention to us that they're looking for their next gig. If it has benefits, that'll be great. If it doesn't, but it's going to be a gig because I probably need to move on every 6 months, a year, depending on what's going on with the company and what my skill level is as well. So it's a changing time. The normal way of finding jobs has certainly changed, and I'm guessing that it's going to continue that way going forward. I guess the other thing that I encourage people to do when they're looking at becoming a gig employee, are you motivated or are you inspired to be a gig employee? What motivates you to do this? And what inspires you to become a gig employee? Do you truly have a passion and a desire to do this? Or is this just happenstance that's giving you the opportunity to become a gig employee now for the foreseeable future? So a little bit of soul searching and a little bit of introspection, I think, is important when you decide to look at this opportunity and then see if you follow up with it and go. You have nothing to risk. If in fact you're in transition and a gig assignment comes along, why not take it? You never can tell where it might lead. But at the same time, you should know that if you do take that and it's not right, you probably need to begin a search once again and find that right job where you have that purpose in the procedure that's going to give you satisfaction. And also the comfort of knowing that you've got benefits and hopefully a long-term assignment with that company. All right. Other thoughts, comments? What a great panel of experts. This is terrific.
Oh, I'm seeing a couple of questions in the chat area.
Do we have some there? Okay, let's see what we got. I'll look up the chat. Let me see.
While Paul's looking that up, I mentioned one other thing, and that's how different generations look at this whole topic. And the younger we are, you look at Gen Z and the millennials out there tend to look at this very differently because they don't want to buy things. They want experiences. And this whole gig economy and the whole way we look at jobs is very different from a younger perspective than from someone who's been around for a number of decades. And so it's just interesting to look at it from that generational view as well. Any thoughts in this chat?
As I'm looking through the questions, I have one here. Dom, maybe this would be addressed best to you. Why LLC and not your own 501c3?
501c3 is a standard charitable organization that everybody kind of knows. Obviously your purpose of being a non-for-profit, you have to get a determination letter from the IRS to basically say you meet the non-for-profit qualifications, because that obviously a 501c3 allows you to accept contributions. And obviously your statements have to be in the charitable nature to be able to do it. There is an application form 1023 or 1024 that you can fill out, but basically you have to have a non-for-profit. I don't know if mission statement's the right word, but you have to basically do that. You're somewhat limited to, you need board, you need directors as well, but generally it's the primary mission.
Fair enough. Sure enough. Profit as opposed to not for profit, clearly. Yep. A question is, as the contractor model becomes more popular, will it matter who is an employee versus a contractor? What about co-working regulations? Anybody want to take a stab at that one? Not exactly sure I understand the question. As the contractor model becomes more popular, will it matter who is an employee versus a contractor? What about co-working regulations?
I mean, go ahead, Barbara, you go.
I was just going to say, I don't know about the co-working regulations, but I would say from my experience of working in large, medium, and small businesses, it's peanut butter and jelly at this point. I think that there is such an understanding that the nature of the beast of business is that people are going to come in on a consultative nature and serve needs and go, not to mention the connectivity of things like LinkedIn that allow people to just maintain relationships. I don't, obviously there are benefits to being an employee, and it comes in this little word called lots of perks and benefits that are not available to a gig person, but there's another list of benefits. I will say from before that a cautionary tale, I'm fortunate that my spouse has insurance, and that's, when you're really sitting at the kitchen table trying to figure out how you're going to make this happen, these are the things you have to consider. I have a lot of knowledge about insurance, but I can tell you that it isn't on my radar that I need worry about. And for me, that's a blessing, but it's a factor.
Absolutely. Here's a question. What is the best way to differentiate yourself from your peers who are offering similar products or services?
Joyce?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at that. So how do you differentiate yourself? You get very crystal clear about who you are, what you're all about, and the value add that you can bring to that organization. So how do you do that? You ask questions, you listen carefully, and then when you present, your whatever it is, you do it creatively, and you let them know from from the beginning through completion, what the steps are that you will take, and be very thorough about it. So I always say over deliver. And so if they ask for ABC, you want to say ABC, and what I also provide is, and that's where D&E would come in. And so you listen carefully for the need and how you differentiate yourself. You always are over prepared, you over deliver, and you do it in a way that you mirror what they're looking for and then some. And I found that that's how you get asked back over time and time again, because then they'll say, we want Barbara, we want Joyce, we want Don, we want that person who understands our culture, gets who we are, and will always be there, deliver, be on time, will provide more than, and it's a pure pleasure. So that's where I have been very successful at doing that over the years, and I highly recommend it, because that's what people look for. They want to know that the bang for the buck is there, and the value add will always be greater than what was requested.
Yep. You're always looking for that callback, and it's based on trust and performance and relationship that you built with that employer, I'm sure. Excellent.
I just want to add that what Joyce said should be executed. Again, if you're in the professional office business world, That should be fully and clearly reflected in your LinkedIn profile. I mean, I've taken a note of some of the attendees today, and you can be sure I'm going to reach out to them on LinkedIn. I'm interested to see who's listening and connect with them as well. And that whenever I'm in any networking situation, in any situation, for me, I go straight to LinkedIn to see what's their story. And LinkedIn is not your resume. LinkedIn is a way to differentiate yourself. You should look around LinkedIn to see what some people who are very successful have as their profile story. And then we're talking about books. This is a book. You want to jot it. Actually, there's a new version of this last week that's updated from 2 years ago with all the new things on LinkedIn. It's exactly how you figure out what it's play by play on how to fill in your LinkedIn profile. And I just can't emphasize enough that if you're going to differentiate yourself, then be clear and concise and only hone in on what you're really good at, with the best of what you do, and make that easy to understand and to digest.
Terrific, terrific. A number of the questions here, but I don't think we'll get a chance to answer them because we're running short on our time here. Just want to give the panelists one last opportunity to add a few more words of wisdom to people who are currently giggers or might find themselves to be giggers or have giggers in their family. What would you suggest to people who are in the gig economy now or looking to be in it? Dom, want to start with you?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, when they're interested in even going to be a gig, I want to emphasize, talk to your financial advisor. Just get as much information as you can and an understanding. And then, these other things that everybody's made great points about that, whether it's the insurance and the flexibility of being a gig and the insurance that you may not have when you were an employee, you've got to understand that going in, that there's things that you going to have to pay on your own or expenses that you'll be able to deduct that you didn't have before. And you just got to understand. So once you understand that and you go forward, there's usually no problems at that point, but you just got to have an understanding of what you're getting into.
Get a good start. That's terrific. Thank you, Dom. Joyce, comments?
Two things. You don't have to have all the answers up front. So that it's fine to go in. I don't know that right now. It's you talking to yourself in your mind's eye, and I'll find out, and then make sure you do, because entering this whole gig economy, it's about always learning. So it's always having an open mindset, being able to shift it as the economy shifts, as we move into what we have in the last 8-9 months. Understanding that technology is something I've got to be up on, and you say, I'm not good at that. That's not okay. You've got to say, this is where I need to learn next. So it's always looking at yourself. What do I need to amass? What skills do I need to add to my toolkit? And always, always, always be learning, because that's the name of the game.
Perfect. Thank you, Joyce. And Barbara, thoughts?
I think anyone who's looking to go in this direction has to know that a gig is not going to land on your lap, on your couch in your den. You have to go after this. There's an energy here. When you have a job with a corporation or any business that you've had for years, you just get in the car or get on your laptop these days and start. You have to seek this out. You have to build a reputation. You have to build a corral. I call it a corral or a cabinet of like-minded people who might be in the same bind as you, so that you have someone to bounce things off, so you can take your stresses to them and get ideas and run drafts by them and send emails to them that you might send to a potential, have a little corral of people that can be in it together with you, but not competitive, and just keep networking, because it's not going to land in your lap.
Indeed. And just a personal note in closing, after a long career in human resources, I thought I was going to retire, but then an opportunity came along to take over the running of the Schegg Group. And here I am 3 years later, a gig employee with my own company. So it's a changing world for sure. And we never know what opportunities are going to come along. But if you're ready for it and you have the forethought and the background, as Dom mentions, and the wisdom that Barbara talks about, and certainly the understanding that Joyce has spoken about, I think the opportunity to be a successful gig employee is certainly there. And we wish you all the very best, should that be in your future. And if we could, Barbara, Joyce, or Dominic, and myself be of any assistance, please reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to talk to you a little bit about gigging and what that means in the future. Garrett, I guess we go back to you at this point.
That's right. Paul, thank you so much. Thanks to everyone on the panel. It was great. And I understand you are all going to stick around and go into our Zoom networking room. So we'll put that into the chat. Again, this is a place where you can interact with our panelists, with speakers, right after they finish up talking. And so you can, we just put it in there. That's the link there to the Zoom networking room. If you follow that, you can go in, and it's a meeting format. So they'll be able to see you. You'll be able to see them and have a good conversation. So Paul, panel, thank you again. I appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Thank you, Garrett.
All right. So again, the conversation continues in the Zoom lounge presented by the Energy Efficiency Programs at Southern Connecticut Gas and UI. Also, just want to remind everyone, we do still have that Foxwoods Resort Casino prize package. Visit our exhibitor booths to be able to be entered in for a prize. We're going to draw that at the end of the day today. Well, now it's time once again for our Diversity and Inclusion Council's awards. We've been giving these out to business partners who are serving wide-ranging customer bases, increasing economic success for all. You know, we recognize the value, strength, and competitive edge our region possesses within our diverse community. And during this expo, the D&I Council will honor 4 minority-owned businesses and organizations, today the 4th one, for their continuing demonstrated commitment to the New Haven region. Their dedication, resilience, growth, and documented success help advance our mission of creating a better future for all people in our community. And Ray Andrewson, our Director of Membership Services, has been doing a great job all week introducing us to these companies and putting a spotlight on a minority-owned business. Today, he's going to share his interview with Bruni Pizarro, Executive Director for Junta for Progressive Action. Ray.
And we welcome once again one of our winners from the Diversity and Inclusion Council, the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce, for this year during our Big Connect Expo. We've been highlighting some of the organizations around our community that have been incredibly impactful, had wonderful histories, have documented success. And today we're very excited to talk with the Executive Director for the Junta for Progressive Action for the resilience of the work in the community, demonstrated wide-reaching friendship for Greater New Haven to help many people. We join with Executive Director Bruni Pizarro with us, and congratulations. It's great to have the Junta receive this award.
Thank you so much, Ray, for this warm gesture, and we are so honored at Junta for for the Chamber's gesture of awarding us this amazing award and highlighting our work, especially during this time in COVID.
And certainly during COVID, and the remarkable history of Junta. Let's talk a little bit about the organization itself and its origins. Sure. It goes back decades. Many people already know about Junta.
Yes, so we were founded by community organizers, Latinx community organizers in 1969. So we have over 50 years of doing this amazing work. And so when there was sort of this idea of social abandonment, especially during the civil rights era of our communities and neglect, these community organizers rose to the challenge, got together and started their own institutions, and their Junta was born. And that was in 1969. Since then, we've been working on advocacy efforts, social services. At the core of what Junta does is our case management, our social services team, and we help folks navigate sort of the bureaucratic channels, uncharted territory for folks, especially those that only speak Spanish or have come from other countries or recently migrated to New Haven. We help them kind of navigate systems and we promote upward mobility. That's the idea. And we also were here for resettlement efforts. So I like to say that we're disaster resettlement experts. In 2017, when the hurricanes hit landfall in Puerto Rico, there were thousands of individuals that came to New Haven and Connecticut in general to resettle because they were uprooted from the hurricanes. And Junta was right there on the front lines. And I was there as a student, actually, as a fellow, an intern. I went to the Yale School of the Environment. I did my work, my master's work in part with Junta. And that's how I began my journey with Junta. It was amazing work in 2017, 2018.
And the work continues. And 2017 was a disaster. I mean, there was a
Definitely.
traumatic experience. But through your work and through the staff, and we see the staff in the community, and we see their smiling faces here too, of all the programs. Let's talk about the staff and how engaged they are.
Thank you so much for asking about the staff. They are so amazing. I am so thankful and inspired by their work since I was a student. They are, they are always there to, make sure people feel comfortable, welcomed, that they reinforce dignity in the community. Junta is a symbolic representation of our community. Many of our staff members happen to be Latina. So we are predominantly Latina-led organization. That's Sheila Serrano, our amazing Director of Social Services, who has been with Junta for 20 years, nearly 20 years. I think she's making her 20th year next year. So she's a wealth of knowledge, and people ask for our case managers. And now the challenge for us is, how do we continue to have this sort of long distance relationship now that we're remote because of COVID? How do we have this sort of long distance relationship with our constituents? So we've come up with programming to kind of adapt to this moment. People want to see them. They're kind of like mini influencers in a way, online. So we're doing a lot of great things online. So look out.
The remarkable work that you have. You obviously have volunteers that are part of this as well.
Absolutely.
And in terms of our award for diversity, inclusion, and outreach, in this time, we know that we are one world and we're a wider community. And it's important that all organizations support each other. So in this respect, the Diversity and Inclusion Award for Junta, describe what that really means to the organization.
Well, in terms of diversity and inclusion, I mean, our founding was, we were founded by community organizers that were Puerto Rican, right? That were fighting for equity, that were fighting for inclusivity, that were fighting for justice. And so I think that the amazing part of Junta is that we've continued that legacy over time. When we talk about basic needs, and communities on the margins, whether you're undocumented, you have status, you don't have status, you have mixed status, you're, Afro-Latinx, and these sort of nuances, indigenous, and so, where certain administrations have sidelined our community members, we have been there to pick up the pieces and try to promote sort of equity in that way. And
well, congratulations.
Thank you. And seeing a face that resonates and speaking the same language when people can't, sometimes there's certain applications, housing applications, or public services, social services, that are not like, there's no one to meet people halfway and speak their language. When you go to agencies or when you're filling out an application, it's only in English. That can be very, it can really sideline our community. So we're there to pick that sort of kind of adjust and help folks know that that the Junta House and its all its iconic fashion and our people that make up that the magic that is Junta, which is our staff, are there to like make sure that we don't reinforce that same sort of marginalized sideline perspective. That's why we are Latinx-led, based, founded organization. So it's an organization that's been founded by Latinx for Latinx folks. So we're not window dressing our experience. And that's the amazing part. We understand our community because we are from the community.
And if anybody would like to learn more, obviously the website is a great place. We've shared some of the slides and information. To contact Junta, how would people do that?
Well, they can contact us by email, info@juntainc.org. They can contact us by phone 203-787-0191 from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. We are closed for lunch from 1 to 2. But please, please, please do call us if you find that there's, you know, a need for a service, someone needs help. We can definitely refer folks. We do work in partnership with other organizations and volunteers. This is something that we don't do by ourselves, so I just wouldn't want to take all the credit. This is a communal and collective effort to do this work, and it requires a collective presence or partnership.
Bernie Pizarro, Executive Director, Junta for Progressive Action, from the Diversity and Inclusion Council, award-winning organization. We thank you so much for all your efforts here in the community.
On behalf of Junta, we are so, so thankful and honored for this award, and we appreciate y'all. We really do. It's because of individuals like yourselves who do the great work in the community and continue to, you know, be leaders, that we can continue our work as well. We hope that we can continue and build this partnership. Thank you so, so much again for honoring us.
And thank you to Ray and to Bernie and Junta. Great to see them recognized for all of the work that they do. So the Big Connect, presented by Comcast Business, continues to roll on. This is our last day, day 4. Hard to believe we've done 4 full days of programming, but it's been a great 4 days, and we still have a lot more good content to share with you.